Hey guys, and welcome back to Shredcraft RC. I'm Kim, and today's video I'm going over my MD1 RC drift car, and this one is outfitted with Accuvance electronics. I have the rad ESC and the Fledge 10.5 motor. I have the V4 Yokomo gyro, Yokomo servo, and then my Futaba receiver here. So this car I've been driving for 3 or 4 months now, and I've really enjoyed it. It drives amazing. Like, the front end grip on this car is better than any of the previous like YD2ZX that I had, or the MC1. And it seems like these rigid, more solid chassis, even like the RDX, are the way to go. I played with a bunch of flex chassis when I was designing chassis for the YD2, and you can definitely feel the grip, but I don't think the benefits outweigh something compared to this. I'm not the best at explaining, I guess, technical things, but it feels like these more rigid chassis use more suspension between front and rear compared to allowing the rear to flex to absorb shock and impact. And these cars are so light now, they're 1,200 grams or 1,100 grams, that I don't think the weight over the rear axle torsioning off a pivot point on the chassis is actually twisting that much with the force that these cars see, especially on slick concrete surfaces. So what I've been doing, it looks like it's riding high right now just because there's no battery or body on it, but the shocks are actually pretty soft. I put more holes in the pistons, so these are 8-hole pistons in these Yokomo big bores, and I added 30 weight oil, so a 300 CST equivalent. So it has, when I get on the throttle and then the car stops, or let's say gets on the brake, all that weight transfers forward. So I didn't want it to just snap down and then snap back, because you'll get different types of bump steer, I guess, throughout the travel range of the car. You can see the wheels move a little bit, but my theory is changing direction so fast with your throttle inputs going on and off, especially when you're chasing someone with a really loose, soft front shock, the car's just bouncing, and then your wheels are just changing, so you can't be super accurate. Again, in my opinion, because everyone drives these things with different style, and there's every type of, I guess, arrangement you can do. On the rear, I have everything set up pretty stock. I went to the outside hole in the rear arm for the shocks, and this just lets the car squat with a harder rate. I guess the spring becomes more progressive the more it's leaned over. So I noticed when the shock was in the middle hole on the bottom arm that I was having to preload a lot to adjust for the weight on the back bias of this car. I also changed the Pro Squat, I guess, shim here. I've raised it 1 hole so you can adjust the angle of the arms again, so when the car squats, the arms in a horizontal position. I have a 22th pinion. This is the stock spur. It's an 84, I believe. And then the motor position is in the 7th hole here. And when I was running my Lamborghini body, I had to actually have the motor all the way down in like the 4th or 3rd hole, so it was pretty low. I don't like putting the motor super high because it feels like the car pendulums, and it just sits on a corner when you go through a corner, and then it just sits there and slides all the way through. So I like to have a little bit forward bias compared to the rear axle, but all the weight on this transmission is on the back. I initially drove this and built it with the CLSD, but I have since put that into the RDX, and this has the Yokomo gear diff, but it's still nice and open. Has low-C metal gears. Inside, they just turned out that the ones from my Baja Ray fit perfectly in the Yokomo housing, so I think it kind of smoothened out the diff action for the rear there. The servo's nothing really special. I did have to shave some material out of the front mount, arm mount here on the MD1, just because the servo horn at full lock was hitting the sides, and that's just because I actually narrowed the front arms a bit to fit my body. And right now I'm running my E36 body here, and this is one that I painted with that's all paint, Shredcraft. And so for those of you that don't know, I used to drift E36, a V8 E36 in the local like drift series here, and have since found these things to be a lot more budget friendly, even though you can spend a lot of money on them. Compared to buying tires for 1 weekend of real drifting, this is way more efficient in my opinion again, but maybe not as much fun, but definitely still kind of the same sense of driving with your friends and trying to ride doors and all that stuff. You can see this body has a bunch of scuffs and it gets around the track pretty good. So yeah, that is my MD1. I hope you guys enjoy a little overview, and make sure you hit subscribe, and we'll keep making more RC drift videos for you. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. See ya.